Hi guys, Queen of Flannel here. Welcome back to the channel. So, for those of you who have not seen this, I did a flip through of Karolina Kubikowska's new postcard series called The Rabbit Stories, and I will pop a little button in the upper corner if you want to watch the full flip through. And so I thought what we would do today is work on one of these postcards. And this video will kind of satisfy two different things. So let me show you guys the image that we're going to work on here. Maybe, where is it? So we're going to work on this adorable little merbun today. And since this series is called The Rabbit Stories, while we color, I thought I would introduce you to and tell you, well, when I say introduce you to through photographs, I don't think they would be too happy if I grabbed them and brought them up here and tried to put them on camera. But I'll show you some pictures up on the screen as we chat. But I thought that I would introduce you to my house rabbits and tell you their stories while we color. So I am actually going to use my Caran Neocolor IIs today for this little image, and I'm gonna try something different. Instead of using my water brush, I'm going to use one of my Tombow colorless water marker blenders for this. And see just you know, if I can get the kind of precision that I would like doing it this way. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. And I guess, you know, as far as my rabbit stories go, I have to start off with Finnegan. Finnegan was our first rabbit. Sadly, we lost him very, very young. But he was adopted. Well, he was. We got Finn from a local ranch and supply store, and I really had to convince my husband. I went in and they had him in this tiny little cage on the counter, and my husband didn't want any more animals at that point. He said no, and so I left and ended up bringing my husband back to the store with me like a day or so later to get something for the guinea pigs, on the hopes that when he saw him he would fall in love and agree to bring him home. And then of course I was like, oh, there's no way he's still gonna be there. He's adorable. Somebody will snap him up. And lo and behold, we go to the back and there's Finn, still in his tiny little cage. And we wandered around the store for a little while, and finally we go back, and my husband leans over the cage and he says, "You want to come home with us?" And I knew right then he was smitten, and Finn was going to come home with us. And so we brought him home, and I had done, you know, some research about being a rabbit parent, and in terms of diet and supplies and things like that, not too dissimilar to the guinea pigs, save for, you know, a couple, you know, minor dietary things, but they both, you know, require 24/7 access to grass hay, and so we already had hay and all that. And I thought the concept of having a free range rabbit was just really, really interesting, and I thought it would be cool to litter train him, and that we would have this adorable rabbit bouncing around the house. And so I did a whole bunch of research about how to, you know, get him, train him, to be able to free roam around the house. And when we got him, they told us that he was a dwarf rabbit. And dwarf rabbits, when they're full grown, generally only get to be about 2 or 3 pounds. So this is what he was sold to us as. So we didn't expect him to get very big. And when I took him to his first vet appointment, he weighed 2 to 3. He weighed about 2.5, 3 pounds at 8 weeks. So the vet was like, I do not think that this is a dwarf rabbit. And so then it was like, okay, well, what, where do we go from here? And she's like, we'll just have to kind of see, when he is full grown, how big he gets. But I really don't anticipate him being a tiny little rabbit. So they confirmed that he was in fact a boy, and we scheduled him for his neuter. And in between then and when he actually had his surgery, we were in there for an eye issue and some other things. And eventually, we did have his surgery done, and he recovered, really well. Personality wise, Finn was not your typical personality for a rabbit. Now, sometimes you get lucky and you get a bunny that is extremely social, loves people, will hang out with you on its own, come up on your furniture, but they're rare. And a lot of times, even to get rabbits to that point, like, you really have to work with them and socialize them and get them used to you. And Finn was all of that right from the jump. He was very smart. We did pen him when we first got him. We made him an enclosure, and he would move his hay box and his furniture around his pen and use it to scale the pen wall and escape. And you would come downstairs and find him chilling on the sofa. He would come up and sit with you. He loved to be petted. He would try and steal food off of your plate that he shouldn't have. Just the sweetest, most personable, laid back, adaptable rabbit that you will probably ever come across. And even our vet had said, you got yourself a good rabbit. He's going to be, an amazing pet for you. And so we had him neutered. And then we started talking about whether or not we wanted to try and find a friend for him. He was perfectly, content, loved his people, loved his life. He was primarily free roaming at this point. We realized that he was just not going to be able to be contained. He was, his litter habits were great. He had his home base. And so we started talking about whether to get him a partner. So I did a whole bunch of research on rabbit bonding and what to expect and how to bond rabbits. You can't just take 2 rabbits and stick them together and bada bing, bada boom. You have to make sure that they are compatible. They can be extremely territorial, and if they don't like each other, it can be a pretty disastrous outcome if they fight. And so we decided that if we were going to go this route, probably the best option for us would be to find a similarly aged spayed female and introduce her into his space. Um, Little background on rabbitry is rabbits are matriarchal animals, which means that the gals typically run the roost. Um, they are in charge of the warren, and so they have a tendency to be very territorial of their space. And so sometimes it's easier when you're introducing two rabbits is to introduce the female into the male space rather than the other way around. And so April and this is 2017 if I didn't mention that. So we adopted Finn January of 2017. Come April, we started looking at our local humane society to see if they had rabbits and who they happened to have. And we found a large breed white female rabbit that had been at the shelter for quite some time. And so we thought, oh, well, maybe she would be a good fit. Let's go and meet her and go from there and see if we feel like she's a fit for our lifestyle or for our family. And so we went to the Humane Society and they showed us this particular rabbit, and we talked through, our lifestyle, our experience with rabbits, our current rabbit Finn's personality, and it ended up being kind of decided that her personality in Finn's didn't really sound like they would mesh. They said that she was very, very dominant in that they weren't sure that she would be the best fit for having a partner. And so we started kind of, walking through the rest of the small animal space, and we came across another white rabbit. She was listed as a Himalayan New Zealand white mix, and you could tell that she had some Himalayan in her. She had her points are light. She had the markings on her nose and her feet and her ears, not quite as dark as some breeds, but she was tiny. They said that she was about 6 months old, and she was at that time called Maxine. And so her story was that she was part of a large scale rescue operation summer fall of 2016. And what they think happened was that somebody dumped outdoors at least two domestic house rabbits, possibly more, and they mated and had babies outdoors. And so the locals, I guess, were feeding them out of their gardens, and then it was getting close to winter, and that area was a lot of like tourists and cottagers and people that aren't there, year round, and so they were concerned for the safety of the rabbits and how they would get food through the winter. And so they contacted the Rabbit Resource, which is a rabbit rescue in my area, and they came out, and when it was all said and done, they ended up capturing, I want to say, between 25 and 30 loose rabbits, some of whom were pregnant, some of whom had just delivered. They unfortunately found a few that didn't make it. And so these rabbits were taken into rescue and vetted and sent to foster homes. And that included little Maxine, as she was then called, and a brother from her litter that they were calling Alex. And so we were interested in potentially bringing her home. But unfortunately, she had just been through her space surgery and was not doing as well as they would have liked. She wasn't eating uh, on her own as much, so they were hand feeding her. And so she was on a medical hold. And we thought because she was so young that she might have a better chance of being paired up with Finn. And so we put our names down to we were interested in her. I was actually getting ready to go out of town for military duty, and so we kind of were like, well, when they say she's ready, how long do we have to come get her? What, trying to work out the logistics. And they had basically said that when she was ready and they contacted me, I had 24 hours to make my decision and come and get her. So it would have been up to my husband to come get her. They weren't expecting her to be able to be released for um another another few days. And so we put our name down. We said, yes, we're interested. We'll take her home. We will, when she's ready. And the next day, this was probably about like 3:30 in the afternoon. And I don't know what made me look, but I was back on the Humane Society's website and I saw that they had put her Maxine back up on the website as being available for adoption. She wasn't up on the website because she was on a medical hold, and so seeing that she was back up there, I was like, "Oh, well, I wonder if she's ready for us to come pick her up." And so I called and said, "Hey, I have my name down for this rabbit. I was told that she wasn't going to be available for another couple of days because she was on a medical hold, and I see she's back up on the website." And so it took a few minutes and they came back on the line and they said, "I'm so sorry that nobody called you. But yes, she is available for you to come and pick up. We missed that you'd put an application in for her. She was released by the vet, but it was kind of like a conditional release. They were still having trouble getting her to eat, but then it was a concern of whether or not the shelter environment was actually making things worse. And so they said that she was available to go, but that it was not recommended that she go to anyone that did not have prior rabbit experience. And so we almost missed her. They missed our application, and if I hadn't looked at the website, she may have been adopted out to somebody else. And so I said, okay, well, you guys close in an hour and I'm about 30 minutes away. I can come get her now. I'll leave right away. And they said, yep, if you get here before we close, once the adoption process starts, we will stay until it's completed and you're ready to take her home, until everything is good. And so I grabbed a carrier and some blankets and hopped in the car and I drove to the Humane Society and picked her up and brought her home, and that is how we got Fiona. She is about 5 to 6 pounds. She is a Himalayan New Zealand white. She is definitely um, not as social as Finn was. It took us a very long time for her to warm up to people, to take food from you without being hesitant. I did eventually find out a little bit of background on her that they thought that her experiences outdoors had definitely, shaped her personality, and that she was probably always going to be, hesitant, and she was going to take some work to earn her trust. And so we ended up leaving her, by herself. We had her in a separate little pen off in our second bedroom, so she could acclimate. And while I was gone for military duty, and that I would work on, bonding when I came back. And my husband said, within the first day or so, she was eating much better on her own, but only if you left the food and then left her alone. She was very cautious of people coming into the room. Wouldn't eat if you were nearby, but that she was eating and she was doing all right. And so we eventually, when I came back, we moved her pen downstairs into the area where Finn free roamed. And we did end up penning him at night just until we got them used to each other, because he would try and jump on the top of her pen and it freaked her out. And then one day I was downstairs cleaning, and I had the door to her pen open, and Finn was out wandering around. He let himself in her pen, and I just kind of watched to see what would happen. And of course she was a little like off put at first. And then I would say maybe an hour or so later, they were both sharing hay out of the box. And it was an extremely quick bond, and definitely not typical of rabbit bonding. It just kind of happened. And so we ended up moving her into Finn's area, and they hit it off. She really blossomed, and we really got to see a lot of her personality once she realized that she was safe. And she really took a lot of her cues from how Finn would respond to certain situations. And so seeing that he was okay with us, and being able to maneuver around on her own and follow him, was a huge help in getting her to come out of her shell. And she's still, you know, she's still a very, like, I'm trying to figure out how to describe it. Cautious is, I guess, the best word for it. She's a very cautious rabbit. It takes her a while to warm up to new situations. And she definitely is not a fan of being excessively touched. She will snag food out of your hand, though, like a shoplifter. And she definitely, as we've come to learn when I get to the next part of this story, needs a confident partner. So the following year, this would be probably summer, June, July of 2018. So at this point, both Finn and Fiona were almost 2 years old, and uh, I came across a listing on the Rabbit Rescues website for a very handsome brown bunny called Morse. And he was available for adoption, and we started talking about, whether or not we thought we could do three rabbits, and whether or not they would all be a good fit for each other. And my husband said, if you want to bring him home, go ahead and apply for, to bring him home. And if he doesn't get along with Finn and Fiona, then Finn and Fiona could live downstairs and Morse would live upstairs. So we had a plan for either way. And so beginning of July, I drove to where he was being fostered and met him and his foster mom. And she told me his backstory, and basically he was found living under parked cars in a nearby apartment complex. And they weren't sure if he was dumped or if he was part of a suspected backyard breeding ring in the area. And so this would have been, let's see, she said they picked him up, they caught him and brought him into the rescue. It would have been fall of 2017. In that, at that point, they estimated that he was about 10 months old. And so he was brought into rescue. He was put in with a foster family. And they had a few people that came to inquire about adopting him. And it didn't pan out for one reason or another. And so he'd been with his foster family for about 9 months at this point, I think she said. And so I met him, and by the end of my meeting with them, I knew that I was going to bring him home one way or the other. And so I was getting ready to leave for some military duty. And so I said, yes, I would love to bring him home. I had to have a home study done. That was also part of the reason why I didn't bring him home that day, because I had never adopted from this rescue before. They needed to have somebody come in and make sure that, the house was suitable for him, perfectly fine. And so I drove back home to wait for them to contact me. They were trying to find somebody in my area that would be able to come do the home visit. And so I would say it was probably about a week later, I went to drill, and I came home Sunday night, and I realized that Finn was not acting right. And I ended up taking him to the emergency vet, and they discovered that he had a really high fever. They put him on antibiotics. We couldn't exactly figure out what the source of the infection was, but they started him on the antibiotics and did blood work, and he was still eating it at this point. And so plan was to get him in with our vet as soon as we could, but that at least we had the antibiotics on board. I'm gonna shift gears and actually start working on the rabbit. That way we get some of that done. And so my mother-in-law was coming in the next day, either the next day or the day after. I'm trying to remember, my timeline here, but this would have been I come home Sunday night, took him to the emergency clinic, and uh, they put him on antibiotics. And then I think it was either by Monday or Tuesday morning, he was no longer like eating on his own, and he was extremely like lethargic. And so I took him to our vet, and they kept him for the whole day. And there was conversations back and forth about what we do with him. And so we did blood work and X-rays, and they were going to send his blood work out to a lab in Florida to test for a parasite called E. caniculi. And so while we were waiting for the tests to come back, we were going to start him on the anti-parasitic that they use when they suspect E. caniculi. It's one of those things that if you suspect it, it's better to just start on the anti-parasitic while you're waiting for the test results to come back than to wait for the test results to come back and start the anti-parasitic. And so we said, yep, we'll go ahead and start it. They asked if I wanted to leave him overnight. They felt like he was stable enough that he could have stayed there overnight, and they could do some more testing on him in the morning. And I said, I think I'd like to bring him home. And I'll come get him, and then I'll bring him back in the morning if we feel like he's stable enough and we've got the medication, and whatnot on board. And she said, okay. And I am glad that I made the decision to go and get him, because, and we did, we went and picked him up, picked my mother-in-law up from the airport, went out and had dinner, and then we went and we picked him up. And this was about 7 o'clock at night. By the time we got him and got back home, and I tried to hand feed him, and he did not take any assist feeding. He just would not swallow. And then he panicked and ran out of the room, and I followed after him. And I will spare you guys. But I will say that unfortunately he passed away. And so I had my home visit scheduled to be able to bring Morse home the next day. And so then it was a question of, obviously we needed to deal with what had happened to Finn, and give Fiona a chance to mourn the loss of her partner, and us a chance to mourn the loss of our rabbit. And then the other concern was not knowing how Finn had passed, and I didn't want to bring another rabbit into the home until I had time to figure out what had happened, and whether or not Fiona was safe, and to deep clean my house, and wait for test results to come back and whatnot. So I got in contact with both the lady who was coming to do my home visit, as well as Morse's foster mom. And we decided we were going to go ahead with the home visit. They were so sweet and understanding and supportive, of the situation, and they absolutely understood. So we decided to hold off on bringing Morse home until we had more information about what had happened with Finn. I requested, a postmortem on him, and nothing came back as anything that we would have needed to have been concerned about. And so we were still waiting for the E. caniculi results, because it is E. caniculi is transmissible from rabbit to rabbit. So if he did have it, then we would have to figure out what to do from there, because Fiona would have been exposed to it. But then part of me, in watching how Fiona dealt with the loss of her partner over the next few days. In the I think it was about a week and a half to 2 weeks we held off on bringing Morse home, but we definitely decided that we were going to continue with the adoption, especially now that Fiona was on her own, and just watching her behavior and how withdrawn she became, not having her partner. We knew that we needed to bring Morse home, um for Fiona. um and so, about a week and a half after uh we lost Finn, we brought home Morse. um and so I've already kind of told you, a little bit about his backstory, and a little more about him. Morse is one of our only animals that we have adopted that came to us with a name already that we didn't end up changing. And so his foster mom had explained to me where they got his name from. So when he was found outside, he was found on the corner of Lucy and Telegraph Road. And so they named him Morse after Samuel Morse, the inventor of the telegraph. And at one point, we had debated whether or not we were going to potentially change his name, and my husband didn't like any of my suggestions, and so we ended up keeping the name Morse. And I'm glad we did, because his foster mom, sadly, last year, passed away, and so he's, kind of, I think he was one of her last fosters. So the fact that he still, carries the name that she gave him, I think is really special. And so I'm glad that we did that. And a little bit about Morse. He is a blend of Finn and Fiona, personality wise. I wouldn't call him like overly like touchy feely, but I also wouldn't call him as shy and distrusting as Fiona can be. Um, he warmed up very quickly. He will come out, and let you pet him, but on his terms. When he's done. um he loves to eat. He loves treats. He also loves cords. I've lost a router cable, a uh modem cable, some lamps, a fan, my shop vac, my other shop vac. And he actually, when I'm downstairs cleaning up, I use the big industrial shop vac to clean out the guinea pig pens and up around the floor, because it's easier to clean loose hay up, and it doesn't kill the motor in my regular vacuum cleaner. And the one day he tried to chomp through the cord while I was using it. So we definitely have to be careful with things. Have to be um, encased in metal conduit, because he will eat through the heavy duty plastic covers. He will squeeze himself into little spaces, and if he can get to a cable, he will go for it. So things are all blocked off and gridded off and up high, and whatnot. But he's a very sweet gentle, good-natured rabbit. He he took a little they took a little while to bond, he and Fiona did. It took me a lot longer to get them socialized and living together than it did Finn and Fiona. But once they were together, it was definitely the right call to decide to bring him home. Um, they're good for each other. He's a very attentive partner. She does irritate him sometimes because she's pretty dominant over food, and she will come out and she'll honk. It's hilarious. I wish I could get it on video, but she will actually come out and grunt, and it's so funny. She never did that with Finn, so I'm not sure what changed, but um they're definitely they're good for each other, and I'm glad we brought him home because he is very sweet. Um Very sweet bunny. Currently, they are living downstairs in our finished basement. They're free roam down there, so they have a big area rug their hidey huts and their litter boxes and their water dish and everything. Um, you know, like hang out on their home base, I call it. But they have free run of the room, so obviously everything has to be, picked up out there or down there because they get into things. They're mischievous and they're smart, crafty little creatures, but we're now in, gosh, they'll both be, so 18, 19, 20, 20. So we're going on year 5 of being rabbit parents, and both Fiona and Morse will be 6 this year. And so my baby's just growing up. And it's we've learned a lot too about animal husbandry and whatnot since having the rabbits, and I've learned a lot, and um just an appreciation for who they are and just the nature of their character as prey animals, and keeping realistic expectations about they're never gonna let me snuggle them like the dog does, but you have to appreciate them on their terms for who they are, and what they have to offer. And um I guess that's true of any animal. I guess though, for with prey animals especially, because they're prey animals, they just um they're used to having to fight for their lives, and it's just instinctual. And I think a lot of people, if you go into getting a rabbit with the expectation that you're going to be able to pick it up and cart it all over the place, and then you're not, and people think, oh, well, the rabbit hates me. No, they don't hate you. It's just their nature as prey animals is to be fearful, and so it takes a lot of work to gain their trust. And I guess for me, you know, when you earn that trust, it just makes it all the more special, you know, knowing like what let's see. Knowing how much work you've put um to earning their trust. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I mean, you guys now know my bunny mom story and all about my 3 rabbits. We still have a little bit to color, so I'm trying to think if there's anything else about bunnies that I can share with you guys while we finish this up. Because I would like to finish this for you guys. We're not too far off. So let's see. Let's bring this green down here for these little plants. I think that is, I think this is part of the like decor on the tail, so I'll have to go back in and tidy that up. So let me think, what else about my bunnies can I tell you guys? I don't know. I mean, if you guys have questions for me about what it's like being a rabbit, a rabbit parent, feel free to drop them in the comments, and I will do my best to answer them. Oh no. But I never told you guys when I was talking about Finn, our first rabbit. So I know I mentioned that they had told me that he was a dwarf rabbit when we got him, and that our vet was not sure. He was not a dwarf rabbit. By the time he was about a year old, he tipped the scales at almost 10 pounds. So definitely not a dwarf rabbit. And, in discovering that, we actually decided that we figured out that we're big bunny people, like in terms of like size. We, with our lifestyle and having, other animals, we figured out that having larger breed rabbits worked better with our lifestyle. Our senior cat could care less about the rabbits. Our younger cat, in Finn, would be about the same age. So Parker was a kitten when we got Finn, and so we were able to train Parker that Bunny is not a cat plaything. And he learned very quickly, and we worked really hard to keep the harmony in our little animal family, and just figuring out supervision of various animals while we fill things out and see how they tolerate each other, and everybody gets along really well. Our pug is very docile, and so again, they are all about the same size. So Morse and Fiona actually just had their well visits for the year. Fiona is about 5.5 pounds, and Morse was just under 8 pounds. And Ellie is about 13 pounds, but she's tiny in like body frame wise. So I have a dog, 2 rabbits, and uh, one of the cats that are about the same size, and just everybody is it's very harmonious, you know, everybody gets along. Um, so I'm grateful for that. With that being said, it's all about knowing the temperament of your animals. So almost done with our MerBunny. And then I've got a couple spots that I'll have to go back in and touch up where I missed like some of the water. And then I got to do the little like octopus. I don't use my Neocolor IIs very much, but I should because they're a lot of fun. The only drawback to using the water-based blender rather than a brush pen is one of the techniques that you can do with the brush pen or the water brush is use it to take some of the color off of the crayon, and you can get some deeper, more saturated color, and that's hard to do with the water brush. Or gosh, with the water, yes, with the colorless blender pen versus the water brush. So that is one of the downsides. You know, I do like the precision of using the blender pen. I think it goes a little quicker if you're trying to, you know, expedite your coloring, and I like the colorless blenders for like on the go. Let's see. Let's start with this. So I want it darker here and around the edges and up here. And then I think I'll use the same pink that I used for the ears. Do the suction cups as I put the Neocolor II back in the cap for this. Doo -doo -doo. Yeah, we'll bring in a little bit of the pink for kind of that underside. It's got that peachy color. I think is how I'm gonna do this. Although there actually is a like a salmon color in here, but we'll see how this looks. So I'm just going back in and adding some more color to darken up some of these. Kind of shadowy areas and just give it a little more definition here. Let's see. Like we need a little bit right there on that kind of separation. And if you kind of pounce your brush pen around, you can blend it out without completely like diluting your color out. And then let's do a little bit. See, now this would be a good spot to use the water brush, just because I could have taken the color right off the crayon a little easier than this way, but that's okay. We make it work. And I'm just kind of like pulling some of the color up into these areas and just random little spots just to give it a little like definition. Let's see here. I need to fix spot. And I am wiping my brush off on paper towel in between changing my colors here. I had some Neocolor II in here, that some of the blue that I didn't blend out. Let's see. Let's bring in so these are pretty small little fishies, so, and I'll go in with a darker color just to add some detail back. Just, ooh, no. Oh no. Oh no. You know what? It's fine. We'll blend it. We'll blend it in. All right, I'm gonna let that dry, and then I should be able to go over top of that where I got the yellow out of the line there, but it kind of it kind of blends in more or less, looking like somebody peed in the water. Actually, I don't hate that. You know what? I don't hate that. I got an idea. Let's see if this. Ah, you know what? It almost looks like there's some light coming from that area. Let's roll with it. And then I'll do a little bit up here. This yellow color. That worked. That worked. Happy accidents. Give it a little interest in that corner. Okay, so then let's do some of our fish in this pink color for continuity. And we'll make this little guy brown down here. And a little bit of this darker color. Kind of pounce it around. Do a little in the tail. He kind of looks like this guy kind of looks like a sardine. And a little bit of the orange. And I gotta do this little thing. Let's just darken up down here some of these shadowy areas. And I want to see if I have something that I can use to make some of these little things sparkly. So stand by for a second. Okay, so I got an idea. Let's try some of one of my, this is the Spectrum Noir Sparkle metallic paint pens, and this is the color Sea Spray. So we're gonna try one of these. And I don't think I have a video on this particular set, but I have a set from Ohuhu that are similar. So I will say with these, don't squeeze them over your project. They are pretty juicy, some of them more so than others. So you want to be like super super careful with these. And I'm just picking a couple of these spots down along this side to just add some sparkle to, kind of dabbling it along in these darker areas. All these scales out here. Yeah, these are pretty juicy. And when you squeeze them, they come out of the pen pretty quickly. You got to be very careful. And let's just do a little bit in here. And I think like I don't have a clean like old brush on my desk. Could probably use like an old like sacrificial paintbrush if you wanted to blend some of this out. And let me see if this is gonna work. Okay, well, I don't have my other white that actually does a decent job, so I think that is going to be it for me today. I hope you guys enjoyed this little project. I enjoyed getting to share with you about my bunnies while we colored this MerBun. And again, this is from Karolina Kubikowska's The Rabbit Stories postcards. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to get notified when I post additional content. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Thank you so much.